We'll call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Board norms. Our board norms are to maintain our focus, communicate respectfully, be present, keep the board productive and effective, and respect the agenda. Do we have any changes, additions, deletions to the agenda? All right, seeing none. So we did have quite a bit of correspondence, again, over the between meetings. And they kind of took on two different varieties, flavors. Letters about long-term planning, and then letters thanking the board for their statement on hate has no place here, which we did send out. So those were kind of the major themes of the correspondence, and we do appreciate everybody writing in to us. We do read those, and even though I'm not going to read them all out here, we do appreciate it. It will become kind of part of our meeting as we go through the discussion. All right, so moving on to members of the public. Members of the public, if there's anything that you do not see on the agenda, please go ahead and we can address it now. If it is part of the agenda, then obviously go ahead during that time and raise your hand, bring up the discussion, and we will go over it at that time. All right, seeing nothing in addition from the members, moving on to student reports.
So recently, the girls varsity soccer played in the finals, which was the first time in 30 years, though we sadly lost to Stowe. We also have, as our school has held their first live play last Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, which went amazing. I'm sure anyone that's watched it was very in awe. They did a very good job, and we actually have our first in-person concert for band and chorus tomorrow night, which will be exciting, especially since last year they were all canceled due to the weather, and they're all outside, supposed to be. And this Wednesday we actually have our NHS induction ceremony.
Awesome. Congratulations on the soccer, by the way. Well done.
Thank you.
It was a great game.
Thank you.
That's very exciting.
Yeah.
Wow, what a great report.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on here.
Yes, there is.
And yes, I was at the game too, and maybe I think I lost my voice. It's been a while.
Same.
I still can't quite talk. So, yeah, it was awesome. Did you hear me yelling?
It was all a blur, honestly. I mean, we showed up in the field, everything was white, like the sky, the field. You could hardly see from one goal to the other. It's like 20 degrees.
Yes, it was a very cold start.
Yeah.
It's very impressive, and really just goes to show what Leland and Gray is made of in our school district. Not just the game, but also Mamma Mia, and yeah, just fantastic what we have to offer here, and what you guys are able to do. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Could I ask a question?
Of course.
Was there some surprise guests in the Mamma Mia performance?
Oh, yes, there was. There was two, well, I mean, there was kind of three because we also had Alexa Litchfield, who played Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz a few years ago. But we also had our very own Mr. Tebow, and there was also, I think I saw him up there, Mr. O'Donnell.
Okay.
And we also have, I think that's Peter over there, and Peter did an amazing job.
Thank you.
For anybody who didn't get a chance to see it, was it videotaped and you can find it
yeah.
on YouTube?
Yeah.
Actually, and I can actually talk about that. Peter Broussard, senior here at Leland and Gray. Yes, it was videotaped, and we will be selling digital copies, or hopefully posting it on a YouTube page as well.
Cool, thanks.
So you're selling copies of it? So
Yes, we will be selling physical, sorry, I said digital, but I meant a physical copy, but we will probably also be posting it.
Great, that's fantastic. All right, thanks very much. Is Ainsley out there? In Zoom world? Wasn't sure if she had anything to add, no? Okay. All right, okay, so moving on to the long-term planning. So, first of all, just wanted to say thank you again to the long-term planning committee. In here, I've lost my voice again. Amazing job. I look back, the charge was on April 12th that we gave to you. And it was Joe, actually. Mr. Winrick made a motion. By October 2021, WRED will have established a long-term plan to guide the budget development of FY23 budget and provide the community a roadmap to the future of WRED. So that was the charge way back in April. And Lindsay, could you tell me how many meetings that was ago? Maybe?
Approximately 12,000, I feel like. I'm not positive. It's
Yeah.
just an awful lot.
Something
Once a
to-
week, basically.
So you folks have built a treasure trove of information about the school, about potential things that we could do with our district. Just been absolutely amazing. So really feel as though you have fulfilled your charge. And at this point, it really feels as though it should come back to the board. And I don't know in what form that might be, but you know, some potential things that we could do would be to add extra meetings in between, like have a board meeting and then have a long-term planning meeting in the middle. And as we have done in the past, we could have a facilitator. You know, we did that with Act 46, where we have a professional facilitator who comes and kind of guides the process. And of course, we would actively engage our communities to garner support, because at the end of the day, this is all about the community and what the community believes that we should do with West River District. So that's kind of my idea, my thoughts. And in terms of like a timeline, you know, we could look to the first half of 2022 to have that kind of facilitation with a professional facilitator, guide us through the process, get us into a better place, not for FY23, but for the future. And as Bob talked about last time, long-term planning is not next year, it's not 3 years from now, it's not 5 years. You know, what do we want to do at the very end? Do we want to have a one campus in 10 years? That's fantastic. That's great. It's a good goal, a good objective. Now, how do we do that? How do we get to that place? And so throughout the process, we would thoughtfully engage the community, all of our administrative stakeholders, principals, teachers, etc., students, right, Peter? And make sure that we do the best possible thing that we can with what we have in this district. So that's kind of what I've been thinking about for the last month, because it's going to be tough, and there's going to be a lot of back and forth. But really, I feel as though at this point, the long-term planning committee has done what they can, and really it should be up to the board at this point to kind of help to bring it home. So that is what I think about for our plan going forward. But before I get any further, I just wanted to have the long-term planning committee talk to that, see how that feels for them, if they need any clarification, etc.
I love the notion of the board being more involved in the process, and at least I guess I feel a little bit like having done so much work on it, and just knowing the amount of like digging that is still to do. I don't know that it makes sense to have no committee and everything come in front of the entire board. But I do think that it makes a lot of sense for the entire board to be at least in agreement. I feel like when we started things that the whole board was a lot more on track with the same idea. And I know that we have had conversations and votes, I guess, to move forward since then. But it does seem like the board is needing to take a more, a bigger role, decision-making role, I guess. So I don't know that we would, I guess the point is, I don't know that we would want to have no committee, whatever that looks like, because I think that there's still a lot of, there's no way you're going to get through this without going down a lot of rabbit holes, and that's just the nature of the beast. So I guess that's my 2 cents.
Well, thanks, Lindsay. I mean, maybe that could be kind of a combination of what both of us said. You know, maybe if you wanted to, as the long-term planning committee, still track towards, as you said, gathering information, going down rabbit holes, et cetera. But at the same time, our full board having that second meeting in a month, that would be strictly focused on long-term planning, where maybe we could take some of that new information that you find and provide it to, you know, whoever the facilitator would be to help work through. Does that kind of feel like maybe a hybrid of something like?
Yeah, and it seems that it would also give the public a good venue to catch up on everything that's been going on for the last however long, and also for you know, questions and things to come in and be answered.
I think it would be a good idea to get the rest of the board in on a second meeting, so that way we're all on the same page and heading in the right direction, and we speak as one voice. And the 4 of us are kind of doing our thing, and then the board's like, no, that's not the direction we want to go. What work we have done has kind of maybe been wasted, I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe not.
I definitely don't think it's wasted.
I hope you don't feel that way.
No, it just, each rabbit hole we go down, it's a lot for everybody to do. You know, a smaller group works better.
See if Drew is on Zoom land, if he has anything to add.
Yeah, please go ahead, Drew.
I completely agree that the board needs to engage in additional conversations about what the long-term plan is. The timeline and the method I don't necessarily think is probably what's in the best interest of the district and the children. From the beginning of this conversation, I've been pretty vocal about not continuing to push this project out longer and longer. So saying, hey, at the beginning half of 2022, let's talk about 2023. I've been on this board for a lot of years, and that's what this board does. It keeps pushing things out. Our committee has done a good job at week after week finding more answers. Now, some of the answers we don't like, but I would continue at the pace that we're working, because we do need to find answers for the public. We need to find answers for our kids. We need to provide the educational opportunities that have been identified to this board every single year for the last decade that we keep failing to provide for them in a shorter timeline. So I would urge the board to not slow down, not push this off till 2022, but continue with weekly meetings, finding information so that we can have a reasonable plan for the whole board and the public sooner than later. I feel like what we did is a whole lot of work and the can is just getting kicked. Let's just stop the conversation where we are and talk about it in 2022. And I think it's the wrong approach.
Thanks, Drew. So just to be clear, today is November 15th, 2022 is in 6 weeks. And what I was talking about would be January through June, or however long it takes to, and I think we would probably want to task Bill with finding a facilitator. That's not going to be a blink of an eye. So, if that were to happen by January and we had somebody to facilitate, that's right around the corner. We're talking busy time for people, families between now and then. We have holidays, etc. So it will happen before we know it.
So I would just like to also say that that doesn't seem unreasonable as long as the goal is that we're going to be moving forward with as much vigor as possible. I think that we owe that to everybody, ourselves included, but especially our students. And I know that we have to have a budget, and we have chosen to move forward with a budget that is the same as what we're doing now. But I do believe that there may be things that can happen that would benefit all of our students. And it is not fair to stop the conversation and actively choose to do nothing. That's not fair to them. And so I think that as long as we're continuing to move forward and that the whole board is in the decision-making process, that whatever comes up and however the moving forward happens, that we aren't stopping that from happening, however quickly or slowly it ends up being.
Keep moving.
Just keep plugging.
Yep.
Yeah, Lindsay, I couldn't agree more, and we had talked about that before. And this happens so often where, we'll rubber stamp a budget, and then we'll find out things like, oh, the excess spending threshold was taken out, and we may not necessarily have had to use $300,000 to help pay it down, et cetera. So things like that happen all the time. And will we continue to evolve and make changes throughout the year? Obviously, we would want to be cost neutral or, not add to the budget. But if there are particular things that we can do to help, and as Drew said, keep moving things forward, absolutely. That would be part of it. And I think with what we had talked about with this structure, with you continuing, us adding a second meeting, there would be this kind of continuous and feedback loop, right? You gather more information. We have a second meeting, and not to say that during our regular board meeting we wouldn't talk about long-term planning. We probably will, right? So there'll be you have 2 bites at the apple every month to kind of have that feedback loop where we can say, as Dana said, yes, sounds good. No, don't go down that rabbit hole. The community doesn't agree with it, or anything, so that we just kind of keep it moving forward and then find the direction that fits the best for our students, for our community, et cetera. Sound good?
I see Ann's
Oh, we have Ann.
And then Howard.
Go ahead, Ann.
Thanks, hi. So whether it's the committee or the full board, I think there are 2 really big questions that I'd like to have answered. And one is, how would an immersive learning center benefit the students? And the other question is, how would an immersive learning center work? So those are questions I don't feel we really got answers to at the last meeting, and I'd love to go further down those particular paths. So just my pitch for what I'd love to cover.
Do you mind if I reply to that?
Oh, please go ahead. Yeah.
So Ann, I would love for you to look on the long-term planning documents on our website, because we, at our last meeting, spent quite a bit of time going through some similar immersive programs. Bill put a really great packet together for us, and there's some really, really good information in there. So I urge you to see what is out there and some of the things that we're looking at as jumping off points, I guess.
And can we plug the website?
Plug the website.
So westrivered.org.
Yes, please, check it
It's
out.
Very organized, You guys made a very good call by hiring Suzanne Paw to
Great,
organize all
thank
that.
you, Suzanne.
Very valuable.
Was that helpful, Ian? Oh, I see a check. All right, thank you. Go ahead, Ally.
Hey, I just want to reject the notion that what we've been doing is kicking the can down the road by passing a budget every year and operating our schools. That's our job. Our job is to run the schools that we've been entrusted to run. And the notion that there's some kind of crisis that we need to overcome, it's sort of rubbing me the wrong way. I mean, we're running, the schools are operating, and that's our job. To create a crisis mentality that we have to come up with some grand plan to maintain what's been going on for hundreds of years in our towns is not accurate in my view. We've been doing a great job by operating our schools, and the long-term plan, an option for a long-term plan should be to continue to operate our schools. And the community needs to have that option on the table too when we interact with the community on this issue. So that's my piece on this.
Thanks, Ally. All right, any other? Oh, Mike, sorry, Mike.
I just wanted to touch on something that I think it was Bob brought up last meeting. So I think it'll be good for the board, and we can flush these out maybe in those other meetings, but we really need to start from our end goal, in my view, and work back. So is our end goal, a Townsend Central Campus, or is our end goal long-term stability of our school system? They might intersect in places, but they might not in others, right? So I think we need to start with that, try to have a meeting to flush out where our end goal is. And I thought Bob was on point with that, so I just wanted to put that out there.
Thanks, Mike. Start with the end in mind.
Yeah.
All right. So does everybody kind of agree with the notion of the long-term planning committee continuing, adding a second meeting for the full board, and then tasking Bill with finding a professional facilitator in order to keep things moving forward and come to finalization between January and, I'm saying June, but it could be quicker. It would probably be dependent on how much engagement we have and how much progress we make and how much you are also able to push things along. Good, Joe?
Well, I think that's pretty close to the right idea. One of the pieces of feedback that we got specifically about the long-term planning committee was the lack of involvement from the public and from the rest of the stakeholders. And the question, I've been thinking about this same as you were, and you were like, that was my plan. I didn't think about having the long-term planning committee continue. I figured the full board could handle it, and if we had these second warn meetings that were for this specific purpose, we could have as much public engagement and as much stakeholder engagement as anybody was interested in, and it wouldn't necessarily be like now a committee of 27 where it's impossible to get anything done, and that stays small. So if we do go that way, I almost see the long-term planning committee as like a research committee. If we're having these meetings, we're talking about these ideas, and it's like, okay, here, chase that rabbit hole. I think one of the things we might want to do to put this all together is to take the multiple times we've done this and the multiple plans that we've come up with and sort of publish it all. It's like, here's everything we've already looked at and everything we know about these different things. And now, like Mike said, where do we want to end up in 10 years or 5 years? And then if we start at 10 years and then we say, okay, to get there, where are we in 5? And go backwards like that, I think I think that's where we need to be. I agree.
Great.
Can I make a suggestion?
Please, Drew.
I would suggest the board just go through the documents that the long-term planning committee has already reviewed. So it sounds to me like what Joe just said is that you want to look at all of the previous discussions and actions. That's all available. It's on the website. It's all the information the committee has already gone through. From a moving forward perspective, the meetings would have to be, pretty well controlled. Not like our last board meeting that went 4 hours with not a whole lot of productive discussion. So I would caution the board to say that if you're going to take on detailed investigative work, that you're going to have to be very disciplined in keeping the conversation moving forward. And I don't see what the purpose of having the long-term planning committee meet in between is, if the discussion is simply going to get rehashed at the next board meeting. Committee meetings that are redone by the full board are really a waste of people's time.
So Drew, I'm trying to understand, you are saying, I'm confused on whether you don't want the long-term planning committee to continue meeting, or you don't want the board meeting dedicated to long-term planning?
No, what I'm saying is if the long-term planning committee is going to be tasked with doing work and research, finding documentation that is then all going to be rehashed at the very next meeting, then it's a waste of the long-term planning committee's time. Having a meeting to then rehab the meeting the next week is not the way committees work. And that's what I'm hearing, is that these documents and all the discussion wants to be rehabbed by the board, which makes the long-term planning committee's in-between meetings pointless. So either the board trusts the committee to do the work and take the outcome, or the board does all the work themselves. But it's not fair to the long-term planning committee, or any committee, to rehash every detail of the discussion they had the week before. It just makes for a waste of everybody's time.
Interesting point, but I think in most work environments I've been in, that's what you would do. You bring a concise group, you bring it to a larger group, you condense down what you may have spoken about for several hours into sound bites for that group, bring it, so I don't see how that's a waste of time, but I'm interested to hear from.
I do hear what Drew is saying about if it doesn't make sense to have the same meeting twice. Let's not under any circumstances do that. It's a big time commitment away from our families and other things that we're doing if we're just going to do it again the same way. That being said, I think that it's reasonable if the full in-between board meetings or whatever are used as so this is the direction we're going, and the board is like, okay, here's my couple questions, and what about this other thought, and let's keep going. I'm comfortable with that, as long as it's not spending all of those full board meetings saying, no, everything is wrong and we're not going to do any of this. The long-term planning committee at this point has done obviously a ton of work and looked at a million things, and we believe that it is not in the best interest to continue doing exactly what we're doing. And so if the rest of the board can agree that is also a thing, and then not rehash that every time, and that's just one example, right? As an example, because how we just brought it up. I'm comfortable with that, and let's as a whole board move forward, as long as it's actively happening. Does that make sense to you? That we're not rehashing previous conversations and the whole process continues to to move, as with everybody here choosing to do that.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, maybe feedback loop was not a good phrase, but yeah, I mean, obviously we would expect that you would bring the information forward to us, and we, hopefully as board members, would have looked at the meeting minutes prior to and have good questions and help to kind of advance and move things along.
Yep.
So I'm hoping it doesn't feel as though it'd be a waste of time. Again, I think we could probably, yeah, go ahead, Joe.
No, I'm finished, but.
I was just gonna say, if the long-term planning committee feels as though it would be a waste of time, then we could just use that second meeting and, you know, move the ball forward as far as we could. But I loved your initial notion of having that meeting and then, you know, continuing to use it as a feedback loop, not as a rehash. That
Right.
was not,
Yeah,
certainly not my intent.
My intention is just that we, as a board, everyone says, okay, let's push forward, and it will just have to be very, I don't know, I guess just not rehashing previous things, as we said. So I think that that's totally doable, and I'm not opposed to that at all.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if you go down 10 rabbit holes, we're not gonna revisit all 10 rabbit holes that would be silly.
Let us
Good.
pick out the top 10, or top 3 rabbit holes.
Sure, there you go, yeah. Which we would see in the minutes anyway,
Right.
you know, which direction is it going?
Yeah, I love the reiteration of the board, everyone on the board really taking ownership of even, you know, the minutes and all of the materials that we've gone through, and actively knowing what's happening and being a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. You've done your part. It's time for us to make sure it's not just on you. Go ahead, Joe.
So, I'm wondering if we, you know, if we think that the right idea is to start at the end point and work backwards, if we don't want to have, you know, maybe suspend the long-term planning committee until we actually start having that extra meeting, and then there would probably be a new charge. The charge that we gave them was to come to us at this point to go budget, and they've done their work. They came back with a recommendation, it was fleshed out, we asked some questions. It kind of didn't have all the answers, and there was some pushback from different places. But, you know, maybe at this point now we start with, you know, here's where we want to get to. Let's start talking about how we do that, and then there's a new charge for either the same people, if they're willing to go through, put themselves through it again, or a slightly reconfigured long-term planning committee to go out and do the other, you know, to go chase the specific, you know, this is where we want to get to, how do we get here? And the charge would look a little different, and maybe the committee would or wouldn't have that. That's for the volunteers at that point. But maybe that's the answer. Because right now, you know, they've identified a path, and rather than continuing to just work down that one path, we don't know if that's exactly where we want to be yet, and we need to kind of figure out where we want to be, and then we can give much better direction to whatever committee there would be to move us in this direction. And maybe it's the same direction, and maybe it's a pivot off the direction. But, you know, that would make that committee's work more valuable and more, you know, valuable.
So, Joe, do you foresee that as being like step one during this second board meeting that we would have, say, in January, after we have hired a professional to facilitate?
Yeah. Sit down and start talking about, okay, where do we actually want to be? You know, long-term planning, you know, if in 10 years we want to be in a single campus located in Townsend, you know, great, how do we get there? And maybe we look at it and we say there are enough hurdles with using the buildings we have. We have to build something somewhere, we have to do this, but we have time to look at all of that, and we task you know, how do we get 10 years down the road? You know, we were looking at it, what do we do next year to work, and I think, we got off track with that. So yeah, I would say the first meeting we have in January, where we have the second meeting, it's devoted to, what does the long-term plan really want to look like? And what does the board say? And we get input from stakeholders, and we get input from, the public, everybody. And we have that meeting, and then and maybe we come up with a charge at that point. Maybe we need to have another meeting and talk about still, where are we going to go? And then we have a charge. And then we work, for 3 or 4 months and try and come up with something that works for everybody. I agree with what Drew says. We need to keep moving forward with this. We need to do a better job. How he's talking about we're doing our job. It's like, I've been sitting on this board for 12 years, and every one of those years we talk a lot about what's not going to happen next year because it just doesn't fit in the budget. And we may be running our schools, but I don't know if we're running them the best way we can for our students. And that's what we're trying to do here, is figure out how to give our students more and everything they deserve, rather than just like, well, we got you a building and we got you some people to tell you things. I think we're trying to give them more than that, so.
That's the end goal, right there.
There you go.
That's the end goal.
Like it. Good, Bill?
You got a hand, but before the hand, could I just add on to what Joe said?
Sure.
Having worked with the long-term planning committee since April, I think Joe's thinking is correct. There's going to be this natural kind of January kind of rebirth, but I think that the path, all the things in the last 6 weeks that have been asked of our team to provide information is purely research. And I think it might be beneficial to allow the existing long-term planning committee over just the next 6 weeks, just to kind of flesh out those answers, just to kind of button it up, not on a new path, but to kind of complete the path, so that is a more discussable thing in January. I think they can both work together. It would allow that energy to continue. They've got some really good follow-up questions that they have. It takes time to get it, but we take our time and we get it to them. And I think that might be valuable for the discussion in January. So, and then in January, I think you guys will be having a larger discussion about how's this whole process going to work out. But I do think that the long-term planning committee has moved into a research stage, that there are some questions that would be valuable for you all to understand. Just simply, what does the engineering possibly look like? What is a partnership with a place-based or proficiency, project-based learning. What does that look like? They ask good little details that I think would be valuable no matter what. So I would just augment your suggestion just a little bit, that maybe over the next, they're only going to meet 4 more times before January.
Oh, this is
max.
new information. I think if there's more information than things that they're doing that are continue to be valuable, that research, by all means.
Okay.
I thought they were kind of done, and there
They're
wasn't
good-
more.
they're
If
good-
there's more going on,
They're good diggers.
charge.
They challenge each other with questions, and then they challenge us with questions.
Keep digging. If you've got the time, keep
I think it's
digging.
very narrow, but I think it's beneficial for the board to kind of button up that thinking.
Makes sense.
Beautiful.
And then I apologize to Ken for interrupting.
Go ahead, Ken.
I wonder how his internet.
Hello. I will add to what Joe and Bill were saying in a different direction. As far as, I think when we go into looking at where we want to go, we really need that. We've been forgetting one simple thing. What do we hold important that we have? We've had many, many discussions to go to Common Core. Is Common Core important to us? If Common Core is an important learning tool for our children and we want to keep it, then that needs to be a priority that doesn't get changed. Early intervention, we've had all these discussions and spent all this money on making sure we had an in-house preschool program, because we want to get these kids that have special needs and work with them as soon as possible. so that maybe that they won't be on IEPs when they're in the 4th, 5th grade and in high school. So we can get them out of that and get them caught up. So if this stuff is important to us, do we want to isolate our pre-K children all the way down another end? You know, keep all the resources in Townsend and put all the preschoolers where they all have to travel. These kind of questions are the important ones. What do we hold valuable that we want to keep? And that's all that I have to add to that.
Thanks, Ken. Appreciate it. So, Bill, do we need any kind of a motion, or just we need general direction to say maybe by our next meeting to get a list of potential facilitators for us to look at, or?
So could I ask maybe the officers if I round up some possibilities that you all would review the resumes, review, you know, their work, things of that nature, so that in December we could have a kind of, it's almost a miniature version, right?
Yeah, short list.
Right, in between, I'll go do some research, I'll feed it back to you guys can think about what skills and things you're looking for, so that we can have a more nuanced conversation in December. Would you three be willing to do that?
Yeah.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just add that to the research that we're doing for LTP.
It's about this deep now.
All right.
Okay, that was my only question.
Okay. So did we finish the plan going forward? Membership, meeting times?
Membership, can we add student and community member to our team? Because we have some recommendations.
Gotcha.
Is that,
Do we want to just make that maybe potentially part of the new charge in January? I mean, obviously, there's nothing keeping you from having
They can
students
come.
or.
right,
anybody.
yeah, they can come and
Yeah.
participate.
Yeah, nothing precluding them from coming,
Yeah.
so.
It's just,
But since you've all been doing the work without them now,
That's not
Just
true.
to catch
We've had
them
so
up.
many, actually. Don't say that we haven't had community members and whatever
No, no, no,
already
no,
involved.
no,
no, but
No,
they've
no.
not been on the committee. They've
Right.
been in the
Right,
room
they've
and they're
never
helping
been in
you and
the
they're
room.
working
Yeah.
with you. But to put somebody on the committee now and say, okay, catch up.
Right.
Well, yeah,
And
we've
then in
had
January
some
we're
people
gonna
that have been along for the ride since the get-go.
Right.
And so I want the world to know that that has been the case. There's been a lot of talk about feeling like there's been a lack of community involvement and a lack of teacher involvement or a lack of administration involvement. We keep hearing all these things, but every single meeting, we have members of the community and we have
Teachers.
administration, and very often we have teachers. And I mean, these things are always happening. So anyway, I just want to make sure that that's very clear to the world that it is indeed been happening, and hopefully it will continue to happen even better.
we appreciate it.
We love it.
We love it.
To the
It's-
people that have been coming,
And the
it's been
people who
amazing.
will come,
Yeah.
we love the input.
yep,
We've gone to the people at times for
indeed.
for the input. So,
That's great.
All right, so
Okay.
can I just recap here?
Please.
So, the long-term planning committee will continue their energy of research and question asking. You will set your meeting on January 3rd. Everybody, January 3rd. I and 2 research facilitators bring it back to the officers so that some sort of either recommendation or facilitated conversation can occur on December 20th. Okay? The assignment for all current board members is to thoroughly review the westrivered.org website. That's what I have down for my list. That sound?
Okay, yeah. And so on, when would you have the list of facilitators? That would be prior to the 12/20 meeting?
Yeah,
When
what I'm
would-
saying is between now and the 20th,
Yeah.
I will look for facilitators. I will get you guys information on facilitators so that when we come back on the 20th, we can either make a recommendation, or we can at least get people to understand where we need a decision. We can go into executive session and pitch all three. Maybe we invite people to come and make a pitch, you know?
Okay. And then on the January 3rd?
January 3rd is the first, second meeting of the month that you will be here.
First, second. Got it.
And I'll send out the link to all the board members to remind us about westriverhead.org, even though all of you have visited.
It's on me.
I'll send it again.
On the page.
And everybody in Zoom land, please look there too.
Yeah, it's the ones that are below the bar in Google.
Yes, exactly.
I go there that much.
All right. Anything else on that? Anybody else have any comments, questions? All right, we are moving on to...
Oh, now you have Ann Connerhand.
Go ahead, Ann.
Yeah, maybe I'm missing it, but I've been through all those documents on the website and I can't find anything about what the benefits would be to the students. I guess that's what I'm still looking for.
I want to say that was part of the PowerPoint presentation, was it not?
You would have been in there.
Yeah.
I'll have to, at this point, I couldn't tell you which document to look in, but I will.
Yeah.
I will see if I can help pinpoint it for you and.
Okay,
send
maybe
it
get
over.
with me offline then. Thanks,
Yeah.
Lindsay.
Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Ann. All right, so budget building charge from the board. Do we need anything on that? I think we're...
So at this point, we will bring a first draft on December 20th.
Yep.
That will be built on the existing structure for the board to start diving into. That's historically what we have done, and then you all kind of dive in and give us more feedback from that. I just wanted to confirm that's what the board is looking for.
You build the charge and then tell the committee to go.
No, this is just for this,
This one.
the FY23 budget.
Oh,
Okay.
Yep. Okay. And then, in terms of the committee, please remind me who the members are of the...
Okay, I think I've got this correct.
Okay.
Lori can correct me, but I believe, go ahead, Lori. You want to just save me before I try to guess?
So with the officers, Dana was also on last year and Keegan was also on last year. And Leanne.
And Leanne.
That's
we had
six,
we had
right?
6?
That's full board.
Yeah, we need to...
That's not a committee.
No.
5 or less.
I think there may have been one alternate maybe, or Leanne might have been an alternate or something.
No,
I'm
I
not
was.
sure.
Yeah,
I
wait a
think
minute.
Dana,
I was the alternate.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
I
right.
think that's true.
Yeah, Keegan was on there.
Oh,
Yeah, she
okay.
was, yeah.
So without Keegan, we could do the officers, Leanne and Dana? If...
Sure.
You're a glutton for punishment.
Should we ask Leanne?
Totally dedicated.
Well, you can invite Leanne, and then if
Yeah.
Leanne doesn't want to, then at the next
Yeah.
meeting we can.
There you go.
How many do you need?
Can't have more than 5,
4 or 5?
and you
Yeah.
probably don't want just 2.
Yeah.
Why, you want to be the alternate?
Ew.
And Lori, you wanted to lock down a first meeting, correct?
I did.
Okay. So you got 4 out of the 5, so if you can get the 4 out of the 5 to agree to a meeting, I think I'd do it right now.
Yep.
All right. First, December 1st, 2nd, or 3rd?
Cannot do the 3rd.
Do I hear a second?
No, he said he couldn't do the 3rd, so
Couldn't do the
December 1st or 2nd?
Yes.
look for
How about,
I am away all of that. I have a conference that starts the 1st and finishes the 5th in Vegas.
Vegas?
It's a cheap place to have a conference, don't judge.
Joe, take our budget and return us millions.
Hey, Lori, you wanna come with? Bring some WCSU money, we'll take care of this budget?
No, Joe, that's wrong.
That would be wrong.
Okay,
The elders made me ask. I could zoom in potentially, but that might be a real pain for you.
The time change will be tricky too.
What about the following week?
I could do
Yeah,
anytime during
how about the
the
7th?
6, 7, both of those are fine.
Okay,
8, 9, 10, all of those are good
I'm good the following week.
for me.
okay, how about the, let's see, I have River Valley's on the 6th, so how about the 7th?
Okay?
Oh, I have Stratton on the 7th, potentially, and Marlboro on the 8th. How about the 9th?
Thursday the 9th?
Thursday,
Yeah.
I'm wide open.
What time?
Time.
Early as possible?
Five.
What's your earliest?
5?
I can do 5.
I can do
Okay.
5.
5 AM?
Yep.
For you, Dana, yes.
Yeah.
Hey, Al,
Sir?
can we make sure we got a Zoom link for that and a minute taker?
Absolutely, yes, please, please.
What's the date?
So
The 9th.
are we locking that down, December 9th, Thursday at 5 PM?
Yes,
Zoom
9th.
and minutes taker to be provided,
What time?
5 PM.
Okay.
5.
All right, Zoom in a minute. Got it.
All right, it's in there.
It's in the book.
December 9th.
All right. Perfect.
Okay,
All right, let's not do the second meeting. No, I'm just kidding.
We'll have it done in one,
We'll do
we're
it
good.
there. All right, perfect. So we got that. Are we on to appoint a negotiating committee? I know that Joe is,
Me and Joe did it.
Me and Dana have been a committee.
Dana! Oh!
Wow, Dana.
Yeah,
wow. Dana will have meetings every day of the week.
Just move in.
Dedicated. He'll put a plaque on the front.
what are we looking to,
Plaque on your
what are we looking to
tombstone?
negotiate at this point?
We only have,
Just the
well, we have
co-curricular?
co-curricular,
Yeah.
that was 1 year. And we have the regular master agreement. The educational
up again?
support contract is 3 years. So we're in year 1 of that. And the master agreement ends this year.
We were on like 2 years in.
Yeah. We finished a 2-year, 11 months in.
I got you.
Okay.
I
I was like,
highly-
geez, it feels like we just did this.
We did.
In May.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would highly recommend negotiations committee going for a 3-year.
Repeat? Yeah.
Yeah.
See what we can do.
Since you guys
Push
are
it
up
out.
there.
We got a hand from Lori.
sorry, I can't not find, for whatever reason tonight, the hand. The co-curricular is actually, goes to 23,
Ah, sweet.
but we do have to talk about that one. May need to be reopened, right?
Yes.
Oh,
we have-
right.
We have some
Yeah.
corrections we need to make.
Yeah.
Does,
Right, but it does go through 23.
does Ann want to do the negotiating? I can do it.
You sure?
I just
Anybody else
thought
want to help
maybe
out,
somebody else would
Dan?
want to do it.
I'm happy to keep doing the negotiating too. I've been doing it for a while.
All right, that you do need a motion for, you, to appoint.
Okay, yes.
Come on, we need
I-
a third.
I will move.
We need a
to
third.
appoint
These are so much
Joe.
fun.
Yeah. Yeah, they're fun.
Bill brings pizza.
Yeah, he does. Quick.
So what was your motion, Lindsay?
What is it, we need to appoint Joe and Dana
Yeah.
to the negotiations committee?
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
It's easy.
Seeing none? Let's try to get, if we are unanimous, we can just do hands.
You got 4 on Zoom.
All right.
Did Ken leave?
Ken's
Ken's
there.
there.
Top-
Ken's there, Howie's there, and Ann's there.
And Drew, right?
Oh, and Drew, yeah.
Yep. Okay.
I was like, who's the fourth? I didn't see.
If
All
all
right.
4 of them agree, then.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I got aye. Who else do I?
And Ann's and I.
Thanks, Ken.
Drew?
Ken's and
Drew?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
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 Aye. All right, we are unanimous. You are appointed. Thank you again for your service, David.
I always volunteer.
And Joe.
I was just like, I'm
Sorry, I
on
don't
this
want to
committee
be
still. Thank you,
Good,
Dana.
we're making
Joe,
up
you're a
for
sucker.
Oh, you got a question. You got a hand.
Hi, Crystal.
Hi guys, I'm just wondering, did I miss public comment?
I'm sorry?
Did I miss the public comment part?
Yes.
Public comment on what?
Like where the
Anything
public can ask questions, like in general?
Is there anything on the agenda that we're going through that would be part of that question, or is this something separate?
It's something separate. I just didn't know, because first part of the meeting, there was technical difficulties.
Oh, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna apologize right now, and normally wouldn't do this, but because of the fact that nobody out there could hear us, you probably did not hear the point at which I said, if there's something that's not on the agenda, please now raise your hand. You are now raising your hand, so please go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you. So I have a question. I don't know if this would be for Bob or if it's for Bill. I'm just wondering, are we currently fully staffed at Leland and Gray?
I can answer in the general and I'll let you in the specific. No, we are not fully staffed anywhere in the WCSU. We still have some open positions that have not been completely filled, but I'll ask Bob exactly which ones are.
Yeah, I think within West River that I'm aware of, a social worker position
Yeah.
and a middle school academic support teacher.
Yes.
At Leland Gray. I don't know if there's others in the district.
I think we're also looking for a para currently, at least one.
And we'll be looking for ELL in 2 weeks. So, yes, we do have 4 West River open positions.
Okay, I just wondered because we're just kind of currently in a situation where Kylie cannot participate in gym, but we've been given permission for her to use like the rowing machine in the weight room. But because we can't have anybody outside the school, in the school, and it seems like they're understaffed because there's nobody available to be able to help with that. And I don't know if it's for all the students or if it's just middle schoolers that they cannot be in the gym without an adult.
Hey, Crystal, thanks for the question, and I'm going to suggest, and I don't know if Bob or Bill would agree with this, but we might want to take this one offline. They might be able to answer your question via phone. Bob's giving me the phone call signal, so yeah, if you want to give Bob a call on that, probably be able to help you out.
Okay, thank you.
You got it. Thanks, Crystal. All right, I guess we're going to question time now. So I opened up the can of worms there. Go ahead, Ryan.
Hi, thank you. I was hoping to speak out earlier, but so I guess this is a request to, I would say, Leland and Gray. Bob, I would like the morning announcements not to include anything promoting the vaccine to my child. I find that is outside of a school's jurisdiction. That is a medical thing. There shouldn't be any promotion of that in a school system. That's a parental parental choice. And I'm hearing that every morning on those announcements, you guys are encouraging the vaccine to kids, and find that's kind of out of line for us. So I would like to request that to kind of be halted. I know this has kind of been a elephant in the room, nobody wants to speak about it, but I'm kind of tired of hearing my kid coming home and say it. I know there's going to be further discussions down the road about it, but that is one of my requests. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it. Okay. Let's move on to intra-SU school choice.
I can take this.
Okay.
So the WCSU board this summer asked me to come up with a draft of what intra-SU school choice could look like. I modeled it after the public school choice, public high school choice, which is a statute which allows any 9th through 12th grader to attend any public high school in Vermont. And there's a process and a program. Bob always reminds me, Bill, don't forget, we got to bring this in front of the board.
Up in January.
Right, exactly. But a school, has a minimum and maximum. I believe it is 20% and 10%. 20% out, 10% in, and no money changes hands, and the ADM, or the equalized people, stays with the homeschool. So I took that model and built it for elementary in the supervisory unit, and presented it to the WCSU board in September. And the board asked all the other boards to bring it back so that the boards could be aware of this conversation, because the WCSU board is going to come back together in January, and they want all the members that are representatives for the WCSU board to be informed about whether the individual boards are supportive of something like this. So it's very much at the exploratory stage, but it is legally possible. I've ran it through our attorney and the AOE. And it really is just a memorandum of understanding. The way I've designed it is that each district would decide their own minimum and maximum. So that, for example, if in Newbrook we had 3rd grade was topped out, but in Jamaica we had room for 2nd grade, we get to make those determinations. So that the district would not have to hire somebody else. It would just fit into their world. So I am encouraging all the boards to have this on an agenda, and then to discuss it at the next meeting. So I wanted you all to have it tonight. You don't have to discuss it now, but I'm prepping you. It's going to be on the agenda for December 20th, with the goal of being to tell your 6 representatives how you feel about it, because they're going to go in January and have this meeting. So I encourage you to ask me any questions. You don't have to do it right now, but essentially it is modeled exactly after public high school choice. The district will decide minimums and maximums, grades that can and cannot be filled. Just like the West River choice policy and the River Valley's choice policy, you could, as Ken pointed out last time, you could bring to existing transportation systems, but a new transportation system is not part of this. If something exists, it's up to the district if they want to provide that, but they're not entitled to do that. So I've given you an example of what it could kind of look like. I encourage you to read through this and know that on December 20th, I'm going to ask you to spend some time discussing it and give some direction to your 6 representatives to the WCSU.
Does anybody have any initial questions?
What was the history? I do. What was the history of, what brought about the question of?
So the WCSU chair, Rich Warner, is also the chair of River Valleys, and seeing the success that they had in River Valleys of their own intra-district, he thought it would be a good exercise for the WCSU to consider. to see if it would make sense for some families. If you happen to live in a different place, or you work at Grace Cottage, but you live in Marlboro, that might be nice. You know, if you work in Brattleboro and you drive by Marlboro and you live in Jamaica, that might be nice. So it could be very limited, it could be very exciting, but he just wanted to flesh it out as a service that the WCSU should consider. So I did the research and I provided that to you, but that was kind of the kernel of the idea.
Thank you.
You bet.
Good question. Anybody else? No? All right. We will think on it.
Thank you.
Homework. That's right. Homework is piling up. All right. Winter sports considerations.
Well, if I could speak on this, we wrote you a letter, Bob, Craig, and I. We met a few weeks ago after talking with Greg and the transportation, the West River Transportation Company. My basic pitch is this. I love, personally, I mean, not that it matters, but I love our winter activities program. I think that what it does for our kids is immense, and I think what we're trying to do is to teach people how to enjoy Vermont every season. And I think it's critical that we teach kids how to enjoy winter, because that's what will fill our schools next generation and make ours a robust society. And I feel very strongly about that. However, this year, when we really were looking down the face of this decision about what we're going to do on Wednesday afternoons from January through March, my colleagues and I feel really strongly that we couldn't possibly keep the children safe by transporting them all together in these buses. In the past, we've run a bus that would pick up from Townsend and come to Newbrook and then go down to the ice rink. This bus is going to be 3 to a seat. There are only 5 buses in the whole district. We're going to have 3 kids to the seat. Yes, we'll supposedly have the windows open, but when it's bitter cold out, I don't know how that will play out. The kids are going to come back. They're going to have been ice skating, let's say, for an hour and a half. They're going to be hot and sweaty. Their masks are going to be wet. It just really scares me, the idea that, because what could happen then, and this is what really scares me, what could happen is we could have a child get tested and find out that somebody was riding on the bus who had COVID. And if that were to happen, the entire bus would be considered a close contact. And then we would have, instead of having one classroom that would need to shut down until we all got tested and back into school, we would have possibly 3 schools that couldn't operate for 2 weeks unless we had the test to stay in place. And our friend Bill Anton is putting together a great plan with our nursing team around test to stay, but I don't believe that we'll be able to do that at all 3 schools. Like, we just wouldn't have the staff to do that. Like, if God forbid something happens in one of my particular classrooms, this group of people is going to come to my school and set up test to stay, and then the parents will stay in their cars for 20 minutes until we get the test back and the kids will come into school. I don't think we can do that at all 3 buildings. And what I'm afraid of is that we will err on the side of, hey, the kids really need this, which I think they do, but we will end up endangering kids and costing all 3 schools 2 weeks, which, as we know, is very costly. So I would like to see some different alternative things that are more place-based in place for this year, during this last year of COVID. Hopefully it's this last year of COVID. And then we can get back to the normal things, which is teaching kids how to enjoy the outdoors in the wintertime here in Vermont. This is really a stretch for me. This is not normally where I fall on these kinds of issues, but I'm really nervous that we would, for the sake of a couple hours of ice skating, we're going to close 3 schools down for a couple of weeks because we don't have the staff to do it. And to be honest, then you also think about the staff that are on the buses, and you think about just all of the different things that could happen. I just hope that, and we wanted to bring it to you because we didn't feel that, I personally don't think that my own biases and my own opinions shouldn't be at play here. The board is the elected officials, and you guys should be considering, what the public would think, and let us know what you'd like us to do. You know what I mean?
How much in high school and middle school is different.
And we also, the high school and middle school, because of the number of buses and because of the number of kids that transport themselves and the parent involvement on the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade level, we think we can run it in a normal fashion. Bob thinks he can run it in a normal fashion, 6 to 12. We're asking that K to 5, that we'd be allowed to keep the kids at school and run, and I'm not exactly sure what we would do. I talked to my staff today about it, and I can't tell you that my staff all 100% agree with me. I mean, not that anyone disagreed verbally, but I don't have that data. But what I will say is that the idea that we could run really robust alternative Wednesday afternoon, outdoorsy programming is something that we're really good at, and I feel really comfortable taking that on. So again, I mean, this for me, it's about transportation, it's about safety, and this is not about setting a precedent. I personally love the programming. We've been ice skating, we've been bowling, we've been going up to Grafton and cross-country skiing, we've been sledding with the littles, and we've been drinking hot cocoa and going skiing. And kids love it, families love it. I wouldn't want to do away with it, but I just don't think it's safe this year.
Thanks, Guy.
Is there anything? Did I miss anything?
It's good. It's me that we.
Go ahead, Dan.
Is there any funding or something that we could do to create ice rinks at the schools?
Try.
But you know what? I personally would love to add to what we already have to offer at Newbrook and at Jamaica. I would think though that even more than the ice, it would be more about the skates.
Yeah.
To get, like, we have classroom sets of snowshoes, which are pretty inexpensive when it comes to like those kinds of things. But like when it comes to cross-country skis and skates, you almost want to rent because the kids run through them so quick.
Yeah. I know in Jamaica they had the sliding hill, they had the snowshoes.
Yeah.
What do they have at Newbrook?
We have snowshoes, we have a sliding hill, we have we have access to the woods. We would probably, like, I would imagine that there would be like arts, like if we were gonna do some kind of like a winter carnival, there would be like an arts component, there would be like, building out of snow. In the past, if you drive by our yard in the wintertime, you'll see all kinds of snowmen and women and snow dogs and all kinds of things out there that the kids are making. And I would really like to, keep it local this winter and try to make sure that if and when people do get sick, that we don't let it take down all of us, that we keep it, to specific groups of people.
Could I?
Please.
Okay. So what I hear you saying is that the middle and high school will run as historically is run, and the elementary schools will take that time and do place-based, project-based, winter-based learning during those same days, but will travel like at the end of the day on a normal. How's the end of the day look?
The end of the day would be the normal end of the day. So it'd be pick up with buses. We would have buses to take the kids home as normal. I would say, like, I haven't gotten through this yet, like with my staff in terms of what we want to do. I have really creative staffs, and so does Craig, and I'm sure that we would come up with things that would make sense, that would be fun for the children, and would help them in order to go home and have skills that they could then transfer to their backyard, which is exactly what we're trying to do.
Just a sidebar though too, we did poll our staff, the whole district staff, around interest level and capacity to be able to do it, and that scored very high. They were very interested, they thought, mentally and physically they had the capacity to pull it off. What the low score came out was in the ability to be interested in transporting students in private vehicles. That one did not go so well. And so the bus piece is such an integral part to the program. I think we used 4 here.
Yeah.
And so it just didn't leave enough to sufficiently do the rest of the elementaries in the same way. So it was either one or kind of thing. We also have some students who transport themselves to the mountain and things like that. But the elementary schools have traditionally relied on a lot of parent involvement, and then putting kids and other parents, like there's a lot of challenges there.
We've always counted on kids in parents' cars, kids in teachers' cars, and a lot of things that probably aren't safe in and of themselves, let alone with COVID and with all the complications. And a bus. Imagine a bus with 75 kids in it, from 3 different schools, and I just think that it's to me it seems like that is sufficiently dangerous that we would try to put this off for another year.
Okay, let's go to hands. I've got Howie and then Lindsay.
I have to take before I go into work twice a week now, I'm taking a COVID test that takes 10 minutes. Could we get tests like that for the kids and require them to just, clear a rapid test on GIST days?
I don't know the answer to that.
I mean, I know there's COVID funds available, and these rapid tests are available. Because I hate to see the little kids missing out on GIST.
Thanks, Howard. Good, Lindsay?
I too would really hate to see our little kids miss out on this. I'm happy that the high school and the middle school seem to be able to move forward. I guess my thought at the moment is that I know that there's 5 and up vaccinations happening now. I know that many of our 5 and ups have already been vaccinated. There's a clinic tomorrow, I believe. It's very available to anybody, and by the time winter activity starts, anybody who wants one will have had ample opportunity to get one. And so if this is the situation we're talking about, we're talking about everybody who feels they need it can be vaccinated. I guess maybe I feel kind of okay about moving forward, with our general safety precautions that are already in place. I would hate to not come up with a solution when we're already so close.
Thanks, Lindsay. All right. Any other board questions before I hand it over to the community?
Oh, actually, I do have one more question.
You do? Okay.
I'm sorry. I just thought of, just for transportation clarification, right now we currently have, obviously, high schoolers and elementary school kids in the same buses, but the problem isn't just that there's mixing of, it's that there's too many on the bus?
So I think like right now, you're talking like an afternoon runs or whatever.
Right, I'm
kids
just trying to clarify the problem.
Yeah, I think because those are driven, nice pun, those are driven by where people live, and so you have people heading in the same direction, like Newfane kids from Leland and Gray get on a bus that's heading to Newfane with Newfane kids getting on it. The buses, the way it would have to work, I mean, A, we don't have enough buses, so that's problem number 1, but even if we had enough buses, problem number 2 is now, in order to make that run to Brattleboro, you'd have kids from all 3 schools basically having to cram onto a bus. So you have the mixing of the buildings, the closer proximity. And I mean, I hear what you say about the vaccination piece. If people were vaccinated enough, they wouldn't have to quarantine, so they wouldn't miss school. Like, that's ideal. Given what our rates are at Leland and Gray, we're under 60 right now, so I don't know what the elementaries will play out as. It's possible that they would be similar, maybe higher, I don't know. It still involves quite a few kids having to quarantine potentially, which I know it's like, that's their choice, like I get that piece of it too. So it's hard, and the solution then was like, well, and because traditionally the elementary school's buses weren't used, right?
Not for GIST.
Not for just for the Brattleboro run. So now you got to figure out who's putting those kids in cars, and if the staff aren't willing to, and our parents could be willing to, and then our parents could be able to dictate, I only want vaccinated kids in my car, like how, and so how do you get into a lot of like really sensitive areas there.
Like, Lindsay, you gotta know, we feel exactly like you do. I mean,
I feel like there could be a solution that exists in this, and
we went straight to transportation.
Yeah.
And we actually met with Greg, and we sat down with him, and then he went back to the West River, and then he came back to us with like a potential, like scenario. Where I am personally right now, Lindsay, is that I feel like we're gonna be coming back from the holidays, where people are gonna be mixing with people from all over the country. And then January 4, I think, is the first Wednesday. You know what I mean? I just foresee that I'm feeling a lot of pressure to make sure that my school feels like a community, to make sure that every kid feels plugged in, and to make sure that we're working on our academics and having fun. And I just feel like this is gonna stall it, or it could potentially really stall us really significantly.
So here's my other caveat to that. I'm going to take over your meeting now, Al, if you're okay with this. I'm just wondering.
Good line of questioning.
If there would be some sort of way to at least provide a similar, maybe it's not like, okay, you know, you're going to do your just Wednesdays, but we're still going to provide access, because I know that the access to the skiing and the skating and the cross country and the snowshoes and Grafton, et cetera, is just the access is kind of a big deal. And so even if we couldn't do like just Wednesday transportation, maybe we can still provide the students that winter access that they wouldn't otherwise have access to.
So you're suggesting maybe I would call up Grafton and say, hey, you know, I've got maybe 220 elementary age students across our district, and we're wondering if we could get some group pricing so parents could come, and then maybe we'd have like, so for West River kids, you know, you could visit one time for this price, like things like that.
Just, yeah, some way to, I know that winter can be hard in Vermont.
Yes.
And we want to teach our young people to love winter in Vermont, or they won't stay.
One of the things we talked about as well, and I don't know how big of an issue it really is, but one of the things we talked about is if we said, for example, because we did talk a little bit about this, like, well, we just said to the parents, like, it's a half day, take your kids to the mountain, do this, do that. The challenge, which is like conceptually possible. The challenge is from an equity standpoint, some kids might get to the mountain and a lot of kids won't.
Right.
And so how do you balance that against, so anyway, so that was a concern we had, we just didn't know how to solve that. By providing an opportunity, you could, but there's going to be inequitable access to those kinds of things. And that was a worry we had.
You know, Lindsay, when you were talking though, I started thinking, and when you were talking too, maybe we could create like a passport, like a winter in Vermont passport, and have like alternatives for kids to check off, and try to get kids to go through, like, maybe I could brainstorm with Craig and Bob, and we could come up with like some things for elementary age kids that would be, I mean, again, and then maybe it would come with a coupon book that had like Grafton skiing one day for free, or whatever we can, like, and we can work on all these vendors. I mean, I was just on with Parks and Rec, and you know, ice skating is certainly something that we'd want to encourage. So like, if we could give the parents the hours of open skate, and if we could give them a coupon, maybe we could, and then, to be honest, the reason why GISP is so successful is because it's parents and children, or I should say families and children. So maybe this would be a little boost, a little positive thing to come out would be that parents would learn how to get their kid to the ice rink, right? Because a lot of us, like I lived in Bratt, so going to the ice rink was something that I knew how to do, but you know, if you don't live down there, you might not be aware that it's such a pretty easy thing to do. It's Friday night, Saturday night, the kids really have fun, you know? I don't know. It's an idea.
Hey, Lindsay.
Okay.
I have another board member. Is that all right?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Mike.
Well, you guys actually just kind of touched on my question, and I was wondering if there would still be a way that if the students, some elementary school students wanted to participate in the GIST aspect specifically, and if their families said, hey, we'll transport. I do hear what you're saying about the equity, but if there's other options for the other kids, that's one thing. But, you know, it's such an important program, and if there is a way, even if we have to do what you guys are suggesting, if there's a way that, you know, some elementary school kids who want to and whose families can support them in that, I would like to see that, if that's possible.
And this is why we're dumping it on you guys. I think there's a lot of complexities to what all what you
Is
guys
it gonna
talk
be
about. It's like,
Townsend
we just didn't
Downs
want to be the
every day?
ones who were like pulling the trigger on that decision point, knowing all the different layers and complexities involved.
I would recommend that if you were going to suggest that we move forward with this as a plan, that we would make a determination right now about, you know, people are allowed to take their children out of school. I mean, Lindsay could come to my school at 11 o'clock on a Wednesday and say, could you grab my 3 kids for me? And I would say yes, we'd sign them out and they would leave. And that would be a half day of absence, you know. You know, that would certainly always be an option for any
Well, could they still get a GIST pass, I guess, like if the school's
If they
not?
access
Yes.
to the.
We don't provide the passes.
We don't provide the passes. And
Yeah, no.
do you want to talk about
Yeah, I
that?
talk about that because I ran the GIST program for Townsend for quite a few years. But I do know that in order to do GISP, you have to register the whole school, and there is a deadline, which is probably coming up pretty soon. And I think that's where parents right now are freaking out.
Yeah, it's
It's
2
not
weeks.
that it's the Wednesdays, it's that you get, like, 8 Sundays that you can go with your family. It's all these other times. Yes, I know Grafton Ponds did $10 skiing last year for locals. It was a great deal. You know, it's $5 to go down to, those are affordable, but skiing is not affordable for most families unless they go through GISP. And I see the panic of everybody saying, this is another year my child is missing out on skiing because I can't afford to spend $500 on a season pass for my kid.
Yep.
And that's where I think everybody is, that's what is going on right now. That if you said, I will still provide the GISP program. We'll still have the GISP program, you can register your children. I don't know how Stratton's gonna feel about every single child who's registered having a parent. We've always kind of been like, when are they gonna cut us off? It may happen sometime soon. We've been kind of dancing around that for a couple of years now. But I think that that's where everybody's panicking right now, is that you aren't gonna get your Sundays, you're not gonna get, you know, there's all sorts of days you get for free.
Yep.
And it'll be 2 years kids aren't gonna ski, and I think that's what I'm feeling like everybody's.
And we are ready to go tomorrow with some communication to families about GISP. So Suzanne Paw in my building in Newbrook got language for me all ready to go. So if you guys chose to do this, they have 2 weeks to register, which is plenty of time. The registration is due.
I'm not sure, but I would just say that.
It's by the first. It's by the first.
I think what parents are saying, that at least let us register for GISP, and if you aren't gonna let us go with the school on Wednesdays, at least maybe my kid can go on a Sunday. This is the only way my kid can ski. And that's what I'm thinking is being said. I might be wrong.
Scotty, is that what you were indicating, was that we would still sign up for GISP, but not go on Wednesdays?
Al, I gotta tell you, I've never run the program in my building. Marshall Wells always did that, so I have much less knowledge about it personally. But yes, that is my understanding, is that these Sundays are very important to families, and that as soon as we can, which our plan was after this meeting, like literally, and I think that we would, I think that a lot of families would really appreciate that and getting that information tomorrow, and I would certainly want to move forward as quickly as possible to make sure all the kids in all 3 buildings were, all their families were made aware of what they could and could not do. Marshall Wells has still been actively involved this year as she's working here in this building.
Jamaica was on Tuesdays. They all said it.
Stratton
with
just
that.
divided us all up. There was a whole bunch of schools so that they didn't have everybody there on the
Right.
same day.
I didn't know if that would help.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, so great point. Definitely need to register. There'd be a lot of unhappy folks otherwise. So then, yeah, it's the decision on the busing on, now, just a question. How many kids would we normally have on these buses? I know you're mentioning 75.
Well,
kids.
I just made that up.
That sounded a little extreme, yeah.
Yeah, I think that the total buses are they 57? I don't remember what the numbers are, but we would literally need to pack them pretty tight because we only have 5 buses, and Bob needs how many? 4.
Okay,
So we would have, and that would mean that we wouldn't even have a bus to take kids to Grafton or to bowling. Now, potentially we could, if we had enough room on the bus, go, because last year from Newbrook, or 2 years ago, prior to COVID, from Newbrook, we took 1 bus with Townsend and went to, took all the kids to the ice rink and then took the rest of the kids to the bowling alley. They waited there, grabbed the bowling kids, went back to the ice rink, and then came back to the 2 schools. You know, but that was a very full bus. Absolutely to capacity. We also need to remember we need appropriate staffing on the bus. You know, I mean, I don't know. To me, that part of it just seems absolutely dangerous in my mind.
Okay, thanks, guys. Go ahead, Drew, and then I'll go to Crystal.
Did you call on me, Al?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Drew.
I would like to make a motion that we continue with our winter support program, and that the curriculum keeping our kids safe being bus, apply those, and continue our winter support programs.
quite catch
What did
all
he
of
say?
that.
Continue our.
What was the middle part?
Continue the winter sports program in what, Drew? Sorry.
I think we have adequate safety protocols on our buses now in order to keep the kids safe. I believe we require masking on our buses, so I don't understand why this is such a large risk.
Okay, I'm thinking his motion was to continue with the winter sports.
As is.
As is.
Yes, as is.
Okay.
I'm gonna second that.
Okay. And discussion. Discussion from you, Drew, the motion maker?
Crystal's
If we can hear you.
Before the motion.
I know.
Yeah, I think this is a very important program for our kids, and I think we can do it with the current safety protocols that we have in place.
Okay, thanks, Drew. Lindsay, anything?
I would just say that I think that we have really good safety protocols in place, and they're just getting better. So I feel like we can make it happen, and that if we're, there was always been some sort of limit possibly necessary to each different, how many people can do each different program. If you're doing rock climbing at Newbrook, you can only have like 10 kids or whatever the number is. So I think just depending on that may be part of the number of kids that can do different things, but I feel like we can certainly continue doing the program.
Okay, thanks, Lindsay. Any other discussion from the board before I move out to the public? Anybody else? No? All right, so Crystal's had her hand up for a very long time, and then I will go to Peter. Go ahead, Crystal.
I'm really glad that Scotty brought this up, and I get that my elementary kids aren't part of your district, but this is kind of like a struggle, even with the small Wyndham school. My boys are littler, and we've been told you will have no access to the base lodge. So we're opting out because last year they gave us a really hard time about parking. So we would have to park in like lot 2 and then take the bus, but with no access to the base lodge except for to use the bathroom. That's going to be really difficult for the littler kids if that is what they continue with. I don't know if you guys have been told that, but that's what Wyndham was told. I thought Scotty's idea to have activities at the school was really great. And one of the things I've been thinking about, because in my hometown, the fire departments, they made skating rinks in the town. So I wondered if the schools could, make skating rinks on their property and offer sledding, and that way they're still getting some winter activity. And I know you guys have like the booster clubs, and they could sell like hot chocolate and refreshments, and maybe the seniors or the 5th graders could benefit for their class trips. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Crystal. Peter, I think you had your hand up, and then I'll go to Patty.
How to phrase this question. I just want to clarify that in some way or form, transportation can happen for these programs, whether that is, as I was just recently informed, like Townsend did not actually have a bus until last year. So I hear that transportation also, so I am so wanting this to happen. I guess I just want to clarify transportation in one way or another can happen.
Was, the reason why they didn't need transportation is because they were carpooling. And so that would be up to the families themselves, like if they were comfortable bringing kids, and then they would want to ask questions of the school or of other families, and quite honestly, I could just imagine that there'd be a lot of odd things that would come up in that. I personally wouldn't want to manage those questions and answers. I don't think that's appropriate for a school to be involved. I would say that if we want to go ice skating, we need a bus. If we want to go to Grafton, we need a bus. If we want to go to the bowling alley, we need a bus. And we haven't asked the children or families, because we wanted to talk to you folks before we went to the children and families and said, if we were going to offer these things, what would you pick? You know, because we didn't want to set them up to make a choice that they then wouldn't receive. So, I mean, I'm more than happy to do that, but you know, we got 2 weeks to sign up for GISP, so I plan on sending out the GISP information tomorrow regardless, I guess. But, you know, whether or not we can transport all these kids, you know, I don't know that at this point. It depends on what the numbers look like and what parents say they're willing to let their kids do, or what they're willing to do with their own vehicles. I can tell you that I think the union and the teachers are probably not interested in carrying the insurance it would take for it to be legal for them to transport children in their own cars. I mean, we regularly make the recommendation that they do not do that. So during the workday, for us to require them to do that would be, I think, you know, something that we need to consider.
Go ahead, Patty.
Just as an FYI, at Stratton, you have access to the base lodge until 10 or 10:30, I think it is, and then that's it.
Oh.
No more booting up or anything. It's all reservations for food, for dining,
Thanks, Patty.
because I work there, so, yeah.
I see Craig's hand. Go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, hey, thanks. The last question I heard, or like maybe one of the last statements I heard, was about transportation. And I just want to say that it is highly difficult and probably not even doable to get all the transportation together with parent volunteers. I did a nice job talking about the union, talking about insurance that would go into that. We are dependent fully on the parents in our district to get them there. And that's going to be difficult. And then we go into sicknesses and vaccinated kids and unvaccinated kids. So, and then if we don't have a bus or don't have enough volunteers at Townsend, does Newbrook still get the opportunity to go? So we're suddenly creating a little bit of inequity depending on the population of parents we have. So it's just going to be really, really difficult. And I just want to put that out there, that the transportation is going to be a serious issue beyond the medical part.
Thanks, Craig. Go ahead, Bob. And then Lindsay.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if the board feels really strongly about making sure that this continues this year, and we were limited to the number of buses that we have at our availability, if the board wants to sort of put some money behind that, we could look into the cost of chartering additional buses so that there would be enough for both elementary and middle and high to pull it off simultaneously. I don't have any idea what that would be. I don't know what the availability is. I know bus drivers are in high demand everywhere. It might not even be possible, but it's something that we could explore with time ticking away. The other thing I'll throw out there too, and I'm sure Peter's going to come over and tackle me when I say this, but if we offered to maybe even just the high school students that engagement on Wednesday afternoons would be optional and allow for them to go home with their own transportation midday, parents pick up, they drive, whatever, that may also free up some transportation to shift to the elementary schools as well. I don't know, because sometimes it's a function of, you know, if you have 10 kids or you have 30 kids, it's still one bus. I don't know if it would change the dynamics, but I mean, that would be something to consider. It would then put, you know, a bunch of high school kids not in any sort of learning environment for 6 afternoons. But if the emphasis is on making sure the elementary kids get access, that could be a potential mix to throw in there too. So I just want to throw out those couple of ideas.
All right, thanks, Bob. So I know, Lindsay. And then, just to be clear though, so what we definitely have to make a decision on, and what you will do tomorrow, Scotty, is sign up for Stratton in order for us to have the ability to, at least on Sundays, get our kids up to Stratton, or on any of those free days.
As I understand it, all I have to do is send out the link for parents to register.
Correct.
Okay, right.
Yeah, it's not me registering, it's me just, and I actually, because I don't know much about it, because I never ran the program, I asked Suzanne to, because she was a parent and was a liaison, I asked her to go ahead and create the language for me, get it all ready so I could send it out.
Yep.
Yeah, I have no problem doing that. That'll happen for sure. This is a very complicated issue you guys are talking about, and we don't even have the real numbers because we didn't want to poll people. You know, we could poll people, but when you say this might not happen, but if it were to, what would you like to do? And then a parent gets down in front of their 7-year-old and says, would you rather go ice skating for 6 times or cross country skiing? And I mean, it's hard for that child to know that, hey, this may or may not happen. And we have been thinking that we'd be better off, taking the six afternoons at schools and coming back hard the following year for regular gist and winter activities.
Okay. Because we have a motion on the floor, and it would be to continue, but we still have 4 or 5 weeks after you do that, or we do that, whoever does that, so that kids have access to Stratton. There's some time, it sounds like there's some ideas percolating. Bob's got some ideas, that there's maybe some things that could happen to potentially make it happen. Yeah, including money, yes, as Bob alluded to. So I'm gonna go Lindsay, Dana, and then I'll get it to you. Go ahead.
So, I was actually hoping Christina could answer my question.
Oh, okay. Phone a friend, all right.
Phone a friend. Do you know if, or have any inclination to what Stratton would say if normally, right, students come, they have like a lesson with a teacher or whatever. I mean, I'm not gonna bring my 7-year-old with their own pass and drop them off and be like, good luck, right? Like, that's clearly not happening. So, I'm just wondering if there's a thought about how Stratton
has a couple different ways. They want them in a lesson or in a group setting till a certain time. So that is like, even the homeschool kids, they have to be in a group setting until a certain time. So it's not like you can just drop them off. There has to be some accountability for them.
Right. So I was just wondering how that piece would work. And
so that you couldn't just go. You'd have to be there, kind of. There would have to be an adult on the mountain. Obviously, the 7-year-old, you're going to just drop them off and stand at the bottom of the hill. Right. So you would have to have some sort of organization if you were going on a Wednesday to have somebody lead the group around the hill.
And as long as Stratton's okay with that being, parent volunteers.
Yes,
I know there has been some parent volunteers in the past, but.
Yeah.
Okay, that was my, that may need further fleshing out, I guess.
Dana and then Ken.
In the past, the GIST program was the only thing you did outside, as far as the elementaries, at least from where I stand upon. GIST was the only program. If you didn't do GIST, you stayed at the school and you did school activities at school. There was a parent orientation, because I did it when I was with my older two. You had to go do the parent class to be the teacher. So they did know what you had for parent teachers and stuff, and it was a limited number. Is it possible to still do just the GIST program and leave the other parts to the grade schools to do their own in-school programs?
If you're asking me if that's possible, I think that is possible. I think that for me, that alleviates the safety issue and like closing schools down for a couple of weeks at a time because we can't test to stay at all the schools. I do believe there would be equity issues that would rise out of that. However, I mean, we're not going to be perfect on this, so we have to make a decision one way or the other. If we put it out there that kids could stay at school and there'd be some learning taking place and some outdoor activities taking place and some alternatives, or parents could opt to come and get their kids and take them to the mountain. you know, and then, you know, I mean, that would be the same, I think that's the same thing. Because parents can always come and take their kids out of school, you know, so I think that's ultimately the same thing, but that is a solution that would, as far as I'm concerned, satisfy the safety portion of this and the transportation portion.
The just part is the part that nobody can really afford and get. That is the one sweet spot about being in Southern Vermont in this program for the kids. I mean, we've all learned to ski off the GIST program, I'm sure. And I don't want to see that go away or be missed out a year. That's where the kids learn how to ski. Whether they can afford it in their later years, moving on, well, that's their problem at that point.
That's reason to stay in school.
Reason to stay in school. Get the six-figure job. But here's the thing. If we can offer that, that's one selling point to our school that helps with it. I would love to make the motion that we keep the GIST program going.
We already have a motion on the floor.
Oh, yeah, I can't do that, okay. Yeah, sorry. I'll learn Robert's Rules of Order someday. Ken, go ahead.
Yeah, I believe this motion is to just have the full sports program, which includes the cross-country skiing and everything else, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so I guess this question goes to Scotty, which is, can you do the GIF thing and the local activities at the schools for winter sports and have it equitable? All three schools.
The hurdle would be that some families would be able to leave work and come to the building and get their kids and go to the mountain, and some families wouldn't. And it's not only about socioeconomic factors, it could be about your people's lines of work or their shift or whatever other hurdles, but I don't think it would be equitable, but again, I don't think we're going to find a purely equitable solution to this that's going to include any accidents.
Well, what I'm saying is you can have a child, you know, you set up the GIST program, and if a child can't have their parents take off on Wednesday and take them skiing, they can still be enrolled in the New Brooks Slide Club for the day, correct?
Yep.
So then therefore everybody will have an activity and the GIST program will still be in effect, right?
Yep.
So therefore it could be equitable. Regardless of if they only use a GIST pass on Sundays. Because if we can't make it equitable, we can't pass it. Is all I'm saying. So if there's a way we can make it equitable, I'm for it.
Thanks, Ken. Go ahead.
So from running the program, I know that Stratton usually gives us between 8 to 10 weeks of skiing time. Leland and Gray, you're on your own, but so if you had Newburgh go the first week, then Townsend could go the second week, then Newburgh could go, and then you get 4 weeks in. Yes, you're not going the full 6 weeks. You're going not a little bit more than half the time. Townsend used to go 8 weeks, so I'm thinking. But the kids are getting at least 4 weeks of winter sports. You have one bus, Newburgh gets that bus this week, the next week Townsend gets the bus. I mean, they're not getting as much winter sports, but you're not crossing the different schools. They're all getting some sort of winter sports. You have something offered to them. The bus wouldn't be as packed. I don't know, just an idea to try and make it work so that they can have something. It won't be the full 6 weeks. I know Brattleboro, I think they only get like 3 weeks of winter sports. And I think like Green Street School goes the first 3 weeks, and so they switch through. I mean, it might get everybody the opportunity to do something, just like they had in the past. And they wouldn't be sharing a bus. Just thinking outside the...
All right, thank you. Go ahead, Lindsay.
I'm wondering if it makes sense to, since Drew apparently is no longer has service, maybe, but to consider
Oh no, we lost the motion maker.
changing the motion at the moment to say something along the lines of, we're for sure going to offer JISP in some capacity, and then let the administration mull over what the rest of it might actually be. Because here we sit coming up with ideas and trying to figure out what it could look like. But I think they'll do that a whole lot better when we're not sitting here in a meeting. And they can just come back to us, because I don't think it's necessarily urgent at that point, as long as you know what you have to do for registering for JISP or whatever.
Well,
Is another month gonna?
Leland and Gray could move to any day, because Leland and Gray is not doing JISP. Leland and Gray
They have
is
the
doing
capacity.
refuse to use. We have a totally different pass. So Leland and Gray technically can go any day. The kids have a full season's pass.
True.
It's not an issue for them. So they could move to Tuesdays. It's kind of the elementary schools that are somewhat locked in because Stratton has divided everybody up.
I'll tell you, I think that I'm sufficiently out of the loop to really talk about this intelligently like this. Like, I feel like I need to get the people that did this work together and to have them brainstorm. So I love what Lindsay's saying though.
Yeah.
Like, we all want the same thing.
All right, so Scotty, let me tie it in
Drew's
about.
back.
Oh,
yes. Okay.
Connecting.
He's connecting. So if that's how the motion maker and you feel, or anybody feels, we could simply just go ahead and vote on this and vote it down, and then if somebody could remake the motion as you stated just now, Lindsay.
You remember.
They're gonna come back in a month with what it actually looks like. But it will definitely include JISP availability.
Something to that.
What are we saying?
We
Tell me what to say.
Well, you gotta explain it to Drew. since it's a
Yeah.
Yeah,
motion.
go ahead.
Drew, can you hear us? Maybe.
Unfortunately, no, I think.
Wha-
Drew's had too many shots. He said.
That's headroom.
Yeah, right.
All right.
All right,
So anyway.
so, okay, so
Very
here's what
succinctly
I'm
to
gonna
Drew.
say.
Say it to Drew, very succinctly.
Drew, what I'm thinking is that we say that the administration will come back next meeting with a plan in place of what things could look like. That also includes JISP in some capacity.
And then we would vote this down.
And so that, then we would vote this down so that they can figure out, they can have the month to figure out how to make it work,
Or just amend the motion.
While getting everybody signed.
while simultaneously getting everyone signed up for JISP. Did you get any of that? That was not succinct.
So the kids that are not doing just don't have winners or
No, okay. This is awesome. So the kids that are not doing JISP will have winter sports, and we'll talk about exactly what that looks like at the next meeting. But the administration has lots of ideas percolating after a long conversation and wants time to put things together more succinctly.
I can accept that.
Okay. So are you changing your motion to be what I just said?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm seconding that. Whatever all that
Okay.
was.
So
Yep.
Any further discussion?
Bob's got one.
my only question is, part of that was we'd come back to you. So we're coming back to do what? And the reason I asked that is that now you're talking December what?
2020.
Coming back to lay out your awesome plan.
Well, I know, but December 20th is too late to make changes at that point. Like, parents are gonna wanna come in, we're gonna need, like, I need
We
to
need
get.
firm numbers
we
in
need-
order to put kids on buses to get them places, if that's what we're doing.
If the thing starts the week after break, that is the week before break, like, there's no one around during break to make that work, so I think that's too late for us to come to you with, like, you guys are rubber stamping something. I think maybe if you had a motion that maybe spoke to the spirit of what you want instead, and just authorize us to do it. For example, something like, we believe that winter sports are important. We want the administration to develop a winter sports program for all students this year to the best of their ability. So what that might look like is if they don't get the same number of weeks, it still fits the spirit of what you're trying to get. Do you know what I'm saying? Or if we have to move days and change schedules, like, we're not gonna bog you guys down with the logistics of it, but you're telling us to basically do it in a way that meets the spirit of carrying it on in some manner.
So make winter sports happen to the best of our ability.
Something like that.
Given the constraints.
But don't box you in.
Given the constraints of COVID and transportation, we're going to try to move kids around and try to figure out what days we can do certain things and see what we can do to benefit the children.
We just can't wait till the 20th for you guys to go, yes, that works, or no, it doesn't work. It's just gonna be too late. That's my only 2 cents on that.
We need to get to parents, and we need to be pretty sure what we're doing before we go to parents. Yeah.
Okay, so what would the motion be?
Sorry, I think Bob made it.
Yeah.
Bob's language does it.
Bob can't make it.
I know,
Right.
but we can take your language and say, Lindsay said it.
Yeah.
Or Drew said it, because it's.
So that you need, so that you're going to make winter activities happen for every student
In some capacity.
in some capacity with an option for GISP and,
Well, you can't make it for every student with an option for GISP, because not every student gets GISP as an option,
every
so.
student could purchase the GISP pass.
Well, they can't, they're in high school and middle school, so,
Oh, okay.
so.
Don't be specific.
Ah, shoot.
I think the GISP thing isn't, I wouldn't get hung up on that. Sounds
Okay.
like that's an easy thing to do, right? That's in the spirit.
Right.
We want winter activities to continue.
But I think that it
To
would
the
be,
extent that we can,
right,
given the
with
limitations
the
of
best,
the mountain and transportation.
I think it's amazing, and I think it's great for kids to be able to leave the property. I think that's part of what makes the winter sports and just so successful and so impactful on students. And so I don't want to say, I think that we should do our best to make something happen where students are able to have an option to leave their campus.
Possibly learn some new skills and learn how to use new gear, right? Because that is what's happening. If you go to Grafton, you get skis.
Don't overcomplicate those.
Yeah, just the spirit of winter sports.
Now, does Drew buy that motion?
Winter sports in some capacity as the head of the school principal.
I'm not sure what the new motion is.
We're not either, Drew.
To just have winter sports available in some capacity as.
So I want, yes, so but to have winter sports available in some capacity could mean playing board games in the library.
That's not winter sports.
That doesn't count. That doesn't count, right? So I just want to be clear about what winter sports are, what it means to be doing winter sports. It means that you are having the
What do
opportunity
you say
to,
in the traditional sense?
okay, in the traditional sense. All right. All right, so Drew, the motion is going to be to continue doing winter sports in the traditional sense to the degree possible
Under the constraints of transportation and COVID.
under the constraints of transportation, Bob is telling me.
And the sites.
Does that seem all right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Boom, boom. Okay.
All right.
All right, he made the new motion, you seconded the new motion, sorry.
That's what just
No,
happened.
thank you.
You're just like,
Come on. And any discussion on that? Go ahead, Ken.
Instead of rehashing and keep changing the motion, we can have a special meeting in 10 days or a week and just vote on this one subject and get the ball rolling. So far, this has already changed 3 or 4 times with a bunch of discussion, and we still don't know what the end result's gonna be. So why don't we just have another meeting in 10 days and vote on, yes, it's good, or no, it's not?
Thanks, Ken.
Because it just has to get out
Any other discussion?
next week.
All right, seeing no further discussion, let's go to a vote.
Wait, I have something to say.
Sorry, go ahead, Howie.
GISP has always been the introduction for kids and families to a world they really couldn't access otherwise, for a lot of kids. I mean, it's going to Stratton and learning to downhill ski is really part of this community. So I feel like we should just run GISP. I like Drew's original motion. Just run GISP to the best of your ability, the way we've been doing it. It's the kind of thing that you can't imagine how it's going to all work out, but it always just somehow does. Parents volunteer to drive kids. Parents take other kids. Every year, as difficult, as impossible as it seems, it always seemed to have come together. And I think if you just dive in and go for it, it'll just happen again. So I am in favor of Drew's original motion. Just run GISP.
Okay, thanks, Howie.
Yep.
All right, let's, I think this is going to be split, so let's just go to, I'll go to a roll call, and I will call folks in Zoom land first. Let's go ahead with Ann.
Clarify, what's the motion?
Ken, we've already made the motion several times, but go ahead.
If you can.
To run our winter sports program. Do we have it written down? Did anyone write that down? No. To run our winter sports program in as close to normal
Traditional sense.
as possible, with taking into consideration necessary transportation constraints due to COVID, doing our very best to run a normal program. Traditional program.
Okay, thanks, Ann. Howie?
Aye.
Aye.
What, hold on. All right. Go ahead, Ken.
Aye.
All right, Drew?
Aye.
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 Hi.
And I.
Oh.
Motion carries unanimously.
Lord.
Thank you. Can you tell we are passionate about winter sports? All right, moving on to minutes of October 25th, 2021.
I'll move to approve those minutes.
Do I have a second? Who seconded?
Me.
Mike seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those, we'll try to do this without a roll call. All those in favor in Zoom land say aye.
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 Andrew?
Come on, Drew. Come on, Drew.
Aye.
Aye.
Dana?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. All right. I think everybody probably read the principal's report and superintendent report. Anybody have any comments or questions?
Just want to add on the superintendent's report that Rescue Inc. has arranged for a WCSU 5 through 11 clinic Wednesday from 3 to 5:30. I want to thank Leland and Gray for their flexibility of hosting. I want to thank the middle school basketball team for being flexible about their practice location. I want to thank Rescue Inc. for being so fast to make this happen for all WCSU 5 through 11, all schools. It's just been incredibly, it's happened Thursday night to Wednesday, and just very thankful of the partnership we have with Rescue Inc. Big deal.
And what is the location here?
Bill, can I make a comment?
Please.
Go ahead, Drew.
We will also have vaccine available for students that are between 12 and 18 as well.
And booster shots for people that need their booster shot of the Pfizer.
Very nice.
So yeah, so students, all students, 5 to 18.
And location here at
The
Leland?
location will be in front of the gym at Leland and Gray.
In front of the gym.
Sea level.
Yeah, in the trailer.
Oh, okay,
The
gotcha.
trailers will be.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's exciting.
It is exciting.
Thanks, Drew and team. All right, approved financials.
Dana, do you know the number?
Yes.
Make the motion, man.
I make the motion that we approve payment of $917,210.25.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor in Zoom land, please say aye.
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 Thank you. And Drew?
Aye.
And now here.
Aye.
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 All right, motion carries unanimously. CVTSE request for ongoing funding.
So this is the Coalition for Vermont Student Equity. This is the advocacy group for the implementation of the weighting study. And the WCSU voted to give $3,000, I believe, in September. And each individual board is being asked. We contributed at West River $1,500 last spring. And they're asking if you would match that spring one again, if the board would match that $1,500.
I make a motion that we match the 1,500 we did in the spring
I'll
to
second that.
go for this winter fall.
All right, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none. Out in Zoom land, can I get a,
Aye.
Aye.
all right. Ken, did
Yeah,
you
Ken
say
said it.
it? Did you say it? Sorry.
Yeah.
Aye,
Thank
yes.
you. Sorry, I didn't mean to make you.
Aye.
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 All right, motion carries unanimously, thank you. On to policy, C5 weapons, firearms. Can I get a motion to adopt?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
I'll just say that that's the exact policy that Bob brought to us and asked us to consider, and, you know, we accepted his suggestion. And the main change was that it gave them flexibility for non-gun areas of weapons, you know, so they didn't have to necessarily go before a school board.
Makes sense. All right, moving on to a vote out in Zoom land.
Aye.
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
That was hard.
Aye.
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 All right, motion carries unanimously, and now on to E1, Title I Parent Involvement Compact.
Sure, so this is.
Motion to warn.
Yeah, this is basically the same policy that we have. There's two minor parts that are highlighted that have changed, and it's been changed for legal compliance, maybe three. But yeah, so it's been run through the committee, it's been run through our attorney, so I think we're ready to warn this for next meeting.
All right, I'll entertain that motion.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Second.
Seconds all over the board.
And discussion. Seeing none. All right, folks out in Zoom land?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Ann. Go ahead, Drew.
Abstained. Oh, yeah.
And
We lost
Drew
him.
has dropped off.
No, we're good.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
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 And the motion carries unanimously.
One more motion?
I'll entertain that motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Woo, I'll second it.
Discussion.
Discussion.
Yeah, is there any,
I think we had enough discussion.
Sorry, it was robotic.
Yeah. She's on a roll. Ruth, you want to discuss it?
Ian? Thank you. And did I lose Ken too?
Yeah, here.
No, Ken's right there.
Oh, there he is.
Aye.
Thank you, Ken.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We are adjourned. Next meeting, December 20th.
All right. Make it.
Thank you.